Beautiful morning, and as you can see, the low sun is captured quite lovely on the olive nets beneath the trees. Well, I'm coming to the end of the season. I've just got a few more trees to do. I'm going to do a few of the neighbours as well. But it's been, what, 6 weeks now since I began cropping, and this is my third load I'm going to bring down to the olive mill. And as you can see, I've got a few more hanging. We've had a really long summer here, which means less winds, less rain, less cold. And so some of these olives are really quite big. Look at that, they've been hanging on there for a good part of 5 months, growing slowly. And you want to see the content here is going to be a lot more water mixed in with the oil. So this particular tree is rather large, and a lot of Spaniards wouldn't let it grow this size, but I've certainly travelled the Mediterranean and seen even larger trees than this. So if I stand back a bit, you can get a better perspective with the caravan behind it. Because of my active physique, I can climb trees, and so I crop according to my own abilities. And some people don't like climbing trees. Even the young guys now just use long poles to rattle down the olives upon the nets beneath them. But when you prune trees, you prune either for flower and fruit, or you prune for structure. So it's a good idea to actually think about that from a very young age. I mean, the idea is that you need to create a canopy, and that's what the tree is always trying to do, is create canopy. So you try to work with nature and design a canopy that's going to be useful in the future. And if your tree doesn't really have a good canopy in which you can get up into and allow the light and the air to go through it, then you really need to restructure your trees. So let's take a closer look at this wild olive. And the original tree has died. So there's the original trunk. That would be similar to the varieties that we're surrounded by. And as you can see, it was a fair old tree before it died. It may have been struck by lightning. It may have just died by natural causes, falling over off its own weight. But what's come up are 2 trunks from the root, and it's produced this, a wild olive. Now, I don't know if you can focus on there a bit better. See how tiny they are? They're so tiny. I'm out of focus there. Just give a perspective on the size of my thumb. That they're hardly worth producing oil from. And even though they may concentrate flavours to a certain degree, as do wild herbs, this tree is just here basically for maybe ornamental reasons. I could regraft the tree, and that's always an option, at maybe half standard or standard trunk length. And that's very common to do with pears and apples. And I could just leave it here, you know, as a pollinator for all the rest of the trees around us. So this is what the natural landscape will look like, and this is what eventually, if left abandoned, it would revert to a wilderness, where there will be mainly a sort of a genetic stock of wild material surviving droughts and floods and everything else that will happen during the hundreds and thousands of years that wilderness produces. So I look at these trees, and obviously I haven't been here for 100 years, but I look at these trees and I think, yep, some of them can do with restructuring. And to give you an idea, as I say, a lot of these trees are the same age, and you can see some of the differences in their sizes just because of the particular type of variety that the olive is. But look at this tree. It's cleaved itself in the centre, and it looks rather ungainly, to be honest. Now these trees are done. I've cropped these trees, and I've left some of the suckers, which that sucker there is probably about 2 or 3 years old. So I've left some of the suckers to grow on that can replace some of the ungainly branches. And there's an example. That's a cut maybe made a few years back. But in opening up the centre of a tree, what you're actually trying to gain is more light into the bottom of the trunk, so that you can restructure the tree with new branches and new trunks. And here's a typical example. Olives at the correct height, really, or the easiest height to actually crop. So these branches are all quite new, maybe 2 or 3 years old, 3 years old probably. And when this tree was restructured maybe a few years ago, I had it in mind to just lop out the whole top of it and encourage more growth at the bottom. So I haven't finished restructuring a tree like this, but quite obviously it's working. And when I have a reappraisal of it this winter, I may actually bring it down even more, and allow these young branches at the bottom to take over the infrastructure of the tree. You can see how high that is. I mean, you would need ladders to get up there, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. And then we can look at maybe a more perfect sized tree. Here's one. Very easy to get into the centre of that tree and getting the olives from the centre. But you can see there's all different shapes and sizes there. It's quite a beautiful landscape to see such variety in the shapes of trees. Here's one which was chopped down, not by me, but my parents about 5 years ago, and it came back on. Look at that. It doesn't look like anything like the olive trees around us. It's because most of the branches on it are really young, and it's just formed this huge canopy, and it actually produces quite a lot of crop. But as you can see, we get a little bit closer, it's actually had most of its existing infrastructure taken away. So all of these branches that you see now are probably at the most 4 years old. And that's the other approach. You can just lock these trees and really hit them hard, so that they will come on again, and in a few years' time they're going to have a very, very productive tree, as that one is. I don't necessarily maximise my crop. I don't need to. I don't feed. I don't water. And at the end of the year, I can just about manage to crop most of these trees by myself. I haven't got the attitude of a commercial producer. It's not my approach to nature. Because why? Because one, I'm an ecologist, and two, I believe in holistic systems where you're working with nature and you're always thinking about how the tree can sustain itself without too much human intervention. Here is a branch a trunk which is really suffering. There we go. Doesn't mean that's going to die necessarily. Still got some vigorous growth at the end there. that tree could do with some restructuring. So I could look at this and I can see that this trunk here is, well, not trunk, this branch, sorry, is actually in a good position to take over the rest of this branch. Now this is a small tree, it's not a young tree, it's a small tree. And that's what I think is an Arbequina. An Arbequina is a very slow growing small tree. And what you may get, which is very interesting, see, you get a lot of this sucker, these suckers growing from the bottom, but that's not the variety that's grafted onto it, that's the wild rootstock, you see. And they're not always coming straight from the roots. If they suckers are coming from the base of the tree, then you're more likely to be a trunk from the variety that's been grafted onto it. So these, you want to get rid of these. They take the energy out of the tree. And if you have sheep or goats, they will soon eat those off for you and save you most of the work. Stop me if you can, dying people made of sand. Yeah, I'm carried on the ocean with a mouthful of frothy sails. Watch me reduce you to that moment when God gave you His hand. And struck you on the shoulder. To bequeath you a second chance. One more life to redeem the fallen heirs. Well, first man, from him you are so descended, from the tip of his rampant land. Not so gracefully flatter your heart. With a breath of fresh air. And remind you of the war that I gone before your stay. Your side was frozen then from a world that you know you just couldn't see. if only to hide from you the stains upon your wondrous tree. Remember the time you passed beneath these tickling branches. That's when your heels go to uplifting dancing. It makes sense to keep the land clean of any loose material. Okay, in permaculture we talk about mulches, and there's an excellent mulch there which I can use in another climate, another microclimate. So I could start composting that, I could put it around the base of other plants, but not really around olive trees. It becomes totally impractical to manage cleaning them up. So this is a byproduct of allowing ecology to take course and allowing the leaves to die down to a certain extent and returning some of those nutrients back to the topsoil. But it's very difficult to actually maintain olives living in an absolute jungle where you're doing no work at all and you're leaving nature to do its own thing. This is a different type of ecology. This is more veering towards forest gardening, where you have such a diversity of plants and such abundance that you are allowing a lot of crop to go back to nature and out of human use. So there are benefits to all types of systems. But in this particular one here, I'm getting something that most Catalonian farmers wouldn't bother with. They'd burn that, or they just wouldn't. They'd be chemicalising their land with herbicides, so that none of this stuff would actually be there come cropping season. So you've seen what I've done just to this tree alone. Most of the olives are falling down onto the ground, and picking just maybe a few more, and then I'll move on to the next tree. So I'm going now to the least fertile part of the farm, where there's less vegetation on the ground, and here it's never been chemicalized, and yet there's hardly any real growth coming up from the floor. And that's because the soils are so shallow and they're so dry that it's almost practically impossible to get a foothold here other than drought resistant plants like rosemary and scrub oak, pine trees. But once they do get established, then they start producing that carpet of mulch, that carpet that other seeds can actually live within. This is the infamous bush, which in end of 2002 or 2013 I was burning to try and get rid of it. I was so naive then. The wind came up and the fire jumped over in this direction, and there was much more herb vegetation here. I've cleared it early this year, and there's a dry riverbed, and the fire leapt down there and there was no way of stopping it, not with the wind. But the wind was moving in this direction, and all of that went up first before the barranco seriously caught alight. And it's one of the most frightening experiences I've ever been in, to see fire moving in three directions, in that direction over there towards the house of the neighbour. So I went round trying to douse it, and in the end there was about 4 or 5 fire engines here. But look at the tree. This is the olive tree I want to show you. It burnt right down to literally die in the centre, and produced all these new branches. So they're 10 years old, these branches. And for the first year since that fire, it's actually produced a crop. Now most of it's on the floor now because the wind has taken it, but that gives you some indication how long it takes to recover and start producing fruit again. Jerry boy, you saw me standing alone. Jerry boy, you saw me standing alone. Ooh. Oh, Jerry boy, you saw me standing alone. Jerry boy, Jerry boy, Jerry boy, you saw me standing alone. Jerry boy, you saw me standing alone. Jerry boy, you saw me standing alone. Remember the rings that splashed your salty lips and left your sweetness. And cleanse your sweaty groins as if to love you in the first instance. You needn't take the food, for God had secured you